Hold on to your hearts, because what you are about to witness will not just challenge your perception of one man, one celebrity, or one scandal. It will force you to confront the very foundation of trust, family, and power that has been spoon-fed to us through glowing television screens and glossy magazine covers. Because this is not just another Hollywood fall from grace, not just another exposé about a man who once made us laugh, who sat in our living rooms wrapped in cozy sweaters and cardigan smiles, who built an empire of warmth and pudding pops, because beneath those layers of laughter was a darkness so suffocating, so serpentine, that it slithered its way through not just Hollywood soundstages, but the hallowed halls of federal power, whispering through corridors of the FBI itself. And at the epicenter of this earthquake is not just a scandal, but a mother's heartbreak, the relentless, bone-deep grief of Pamela Warner, a woman whose child, her brilliant, bright, innocent son, Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the Theo Huxtable who became a fixture in our collective hearts, was snuffed out not by fate, not by chance, but by a machinery of silence so well-oiled it nearly erased him from history. Yet she refuses to let that happen. She refuses to let the world forget. She refuses to accept the official narrative of accident, misfortune, or fading relevance, because Pamela knows, with a certainty that gnaws at her bones and keeps her awake at night, that her child knew something dangerous, something buried so deeply that powerful men feared its exposure. And for that knowledge, he paid the ultimate price. And imagine, just imagine, the agony of a mother living with that truth, watching lies wrap around her son's memory like chains, feeling the world cheerfully consume illusions of family-friendly innocence, while she knows that behind the curtain, behind the manufactured smiles, lay the shadows of manipulation, betrayal, and cover-ups orchestrated by the very man who once called himself America's dad, Bill Cosby, a man whose influence reached so far that leaked footage, confidential documents, and hushed testimonies reveal not a desperate comedian fighting for his reputation, but a calculating figure negotiating with federal agents, building alliances with politicians, media executives, and power brokers to ensure that his darkest secrets would never see the light of day. And every revelation Pamela uncovers is not just a clue, but a dagger, slicing deeper into the raw wound of her grief. Every unanswered question is not silence, but a scream, a howl into a void that has swallowed her son. And yet instead of succumbing to despair, she has risen. She has transformed her grief into fire, her tears into resolve, standing fearless, fueled by rage, by love, and by an unyielding determination to tear open the curtain that shielded monsters. Because as the cracks in Cosby's empire widen, as social media erupts with hashtags like Justice for Malcolm and a Cosby cover-up, as journalists scramble to connect dots they once dared not touch, the carefully constructed facade of wholesome innocence begins to crumble. And what is revealed is not just scandal, but betrayal on a scale so enormous it shakes Hollywood to its core, an emotional earthquake reverberating across generations who once trusted, adored, and idolized this man. And as Pamela steps into the spotlight with documents, tapes, Malcolm's own journals scribbled with haunting premonitions. If anything happens to me, look at Cosby. The public can no longer turn away, because the truth, devastating and raw, is clawing its way to the surface. And with each revelation, each press conference, each viral clip of Pamela's trembling yet resolute voice, the world is forced to ask, how many lives were destroyed to protect an empire built on smiles? How many voices were silenced so one man could remain untouchable? And how deep did the rot go when even federal agencies bent to shield him? And as millions process this betrayal, they feel not just anger, but heartbreak. The kind of heartbreak that comes when the very figures who raised us on television, who shaped our sense of family and morality, are exposed as orchestrators of nightmares. And Malcolm's story, once at risk of being forgotten, now becomes a symbol. His unfinished documentary, his scattered notes, his whispered warnings now serve as a roadmap to the truth. And Pamela, the mother who once tucked him in, now tucks his legacy into the hands of the world, demanding we listen, demanding we see, demanding we fight. Because her battle is no longer just about her son. It is about every family that has been manipulated by power, every voice that has been buried beneath Hollywood's golden lies. And the intensity of this reckoning will leave you shaken. because this is not simply the downfall of a man, but the exposure of a system, a network, a shadow empire that thrived on silence. And Pamela Warner. The story does not end with the first wave of revelations, because Pamela Warner's pursuit of truth has become a relentless storm, tearing through the illusion of Hollywood's golden era and shaking the pillars of power that shielded Bill Cosby for decades. And as more files leak, as more insiders break their silence, the portrait of betrayal grows darker. Because it was not just about one man, not just about one actor turned American father figure, but about an intricate network of power that extended into studios, newsrooms, courtrooms, and the FBI itself. And Pamela, now armed with years of obsessive research, sleepless nights, whispered tips, and the haunting words of her son's journal, becomes both detective and warrior, determined to rip apart every lie, expose every cover-up, and dismantle every wall built to protect the guilty. And in doing so, she turns her grief into a global movement, one that millions rally behind, because they recognize in her voice the universal cry of a parent robbed of their child and denied justice. And this second wave of revelations is even more devastating because it shows that Malcolm's death was not random, not accidental, not the product of misfortune, but of design, that his last weeks were shadowed by surveillance, that his phone records were wiped, that his apartment was broken into and notes scattered, that friends remember him speaking with urgency about finishing the project and not being able to hold this in anymore. A project believed to be a documentary connecting Cosby's hidden dealings with FBI officials. A project that could have destroyed careers, shaken Washington, and shattered Hollywood's carefully manufactured facade of innocence. And Pamela's release of a USB drive allegedly found in Malcolm's belongings adds gasoline to the fire. For on it are partial recordings of conversations, grainy but clear enough to hear voices discussing payoffs, suppression, and the silencing of a young actor who knew too much. And when Pamela makes these files public, the internet detonates, hashtags flood timelines, podcasts dissect every frame, every word, every chilling pause, and protests erupt not just in Los Angeles, but in New York, Atlanta, Chicago, London, Johannesburg. People holding up photos of Malcolm not just as Theo Huxtable, but as a martyr for truth, a young man whose refusal to bow to corruption cost him everything, and the outrage grows so fierce that politicians are forced to respond, congressional hearings are demanded, journalists camp outside FBI headquarters demanding explanations for the documents showing special arrangements with Cosby, and slowly the public begins to see that what Pamela has unearthed is bigger than one man. Bigger than one scandal. It is a mirror held up to a system where fame, money, and influence intertwine with law enforcement to bury truth and protect predators. And Pamela herself, though exhausted and grieving, refuses to rest, appearing on nightly broadcasts with her trembling but determined voice, saying over and over, "I will not stop until justice for Malcolm is done." Her words echoing across networks, across platforms, across continents. And each time she speaks, the world listens because it is not just about her son anymore. It is about every silenced voice, every crushed whistleblower, every victim forced into shadows by the machinery of power. And Cosby's empire now crumbles further as former co-stars begin to speak, some in whispers, some openly, about years of manipulation, about warnings Malcolm gave them, about strange threats that silenced their own doubts. And the story becomes a cultural earthquake. Professors teach about it. Preachers sermonize about it. High school students post TikToks dissecting the leaked FBI footage. And all the while, Pamela stands at the center, fragile yet unbreakable, embodying the contradiction of pain and power. And the deeper investigators dig, the more shocking the revelations become. Because newly declassified memos reveal Cosby's meetings with agents in the 1980s and 1990s. Deals not just about his career, but about shielding associates tied to scandals even darker. And Malcolm's notes, recovered from his journal, mention names, dates, and codes, now being verified by independent journalists. And every page feels like a cry from the grave, warning of what he knew, what he was about to expose, what he suspected would cost him his life. And Pamela reading those pages aloud at a vigil attended by thousands becomes one of the most gut-wrenching moments in this saga, her voice cracking as she reads, "If anything happens to me, look at Cosby. Look at the ones who protect him. They know everything." And those words ripple outward, becoming graffiti on walls, becoming chants in marches, becoming the rallying cry of a generation disillusioned with the heroes they were sold. And by now, Cosby's team is in complete disarray, issuing denials, blaming fabricated evidence, calling Pamela unstable.